Hi, I'm Mike Perez, Mastering the Young Band and MikePerezBand.com. At the back of my Essential Foundations Supplemental Technique and Warm-Up Method book are scale and technique pages and many of the common band keys as well as some expanded keys as well. This video is specifically going to talk about the major scales on those scale and technique sheets. You will see that these scale and technique sheets are broken down into two versions. The first is just the basic range, 1 octave scale for all instruments. Some instruments I did include multiple octaves in case you're at a point in your student's development that you maybe want to work on a lower range scale or an upper. I do recommend with your students when you use these pages to obviously start on a range that's most comfortable for them, but make sure you do assign what octaves you want your students to play instead of letting them choose. You really want to guide them to make sure that what they are playing is appropriate with their development. So assign the octaves. When you're playing these scales, I really recommend that you get your students to identify their key signature first, always have them touch the key signature, talk about what notes are changed or not changed in the key. I use a method called the critical note. So I have my student touch the key and then I ask them what the critical note is. If you haven't seen my video about key signature and the critical note, go to my YouTube channel and look for that video. It's key signature for the young band. And the concept is the critical note. It's basically what is the note that changes between each key signature. So in the key of concert B flat, it's the 7th scale degree. It's that concert A. So having students identify the key, and then what I tell them to do is, okay, touch the critical note, show your pair and trio your fingerings, so they'll show each other the fingerings, and then we'll note name the scale. I always start with note naming the scales first. So they say the note names, and when they're first doing it, you might even want to go in half notes when they're saying their note names. They'll go B flat, C, D. So they're really processing that key signature. And when I'm leading my students, that right before we get to the critical note, so they'll go G, I'll go critical note, A, C, and so on. They'll say their notes and I'll kind of shout out that critical note just to reinforce the note of change in their key signature. When you're playing the scales, I encourage you, if you are working on vibrato with your vibrato instruments, have them start by putting vibrato on that whole note at the end. It could be an 8th note vibrato, it could be a triplet vibrato, it could just be their what I call their natural vibrato, kind of their end product 16th note vibrato. If they're getting pretty good with their vibrato, you could certainly add that onto their half notes as well. With these scales, make sure that you mix it up by adding slurs. Maybe they tongue up, slur down, or maybe they slur up and tongue down. Add slurs into the exercises just to work on their slur playing and pushing that air through the slur. You can add articulations, like maybe playing it staccato or accented, just different ways of varying how they approach their scales. A way of building their technique, you can certainly play the scales twice as fast. So I do recommend you start your scales at tempo 60, so it's nice and slow, but then they can play it twice as fast. Da, 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 da. It's just another way of building technique. Obviously, speeding up tempo, that kind of thing, that's how I use those scales. The 2 octave scale, you'll notice for students where a 2 octave range is just really too high or too low for them, they start off just playing the root of the scale for a whole note, while the rest of the instruments that are in 2 octaves build their way up. Second measure, they have a measure of rest so that they can touch the rest, breathe, and then come in. And what's really good about that, having your people that really are 1 octave playing the 2 octave exercise, they join in where your other instruments, for instance like your clarinets, they're a little insecure about their upper range. And then when the rest of the instruments come in on that 2nd octave, it really gives them confidence to play that 2nd octave and not feel sheepish about it. And then when the brass finish, they keep descending into their more comfortable range, and then they finish together with that whole note so they can finish the great tone quality, check their tuner, and then release. So that's why I wrote the 2 octave major scales the way that I did, is so that students that are playing the 2 octave get extra support as they're going on that upper octave part of the scale. So that's how I use my major scales, and some suggestions on how to use that and introduce that to your students.